Welcome, everybody, to our Fighter Safe meeting. I'm Linda Binkley, and I am offering my helpful small service to be the education chair for our committee. Some of you don't recognize me and my husband because we don't actually live on Old Oak Way. We live on Pierce Road, but if you go down Old Oak Way and you forget to turn left or right, you will end up on our property. And it's heavily wooded, and so we belong here with this group. Now, today we have an interesting education lesson, and it's on wildfire evacuation. Most of you probably already have an evacuation plan in hand for your household in case of any kind of emergency, but we'll be specifically dealing with wildfire evacuation. And we have a speaker today whose name is Brad Hartzell, and he is a retired fireman, and he is on the council. So he'll be speaking to you, and then when he's all done, we'll take questions. All good? Thank you.
All right. I would normally say good evening or good afternoon, but I'm going to say good happy hour today. So this is the first presentation that I've given of any size for any length of time. Before I retired as a firefighter after 35 years, I was in the training division, so I used to do this stuff on a very regular basis with a bunch of firefighters, not a bunch of neighborhood people having a really good time with hors d'oeuvres and I suspect high quality red wine or white wine. So I'm really looking forward to this being over with here soon so I can enjoy that with you. All right, so today we're going to be talking about wildfire evacuation planning and look over some other things with Defensible Space. How many of you attended the previous Defensible Space? A good chunk of you. Okay, so we'll zip right through that, and I'm hoping the people that are on the Zoom end of this have participated in that as well. And if not, this is part of the Ready, Set, Go program that CAL FIRE has put out, and the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council is using that as the model to follow. So if you go to the Fire Safe website or CAL FIRE, you'll see the Ready, Set, Go program, and you can review your defensible space. All right, so I'm going to start out with a video here real quick. And this is of an individual evacuating during the Santa Rosa fire. And you can't really hear the sound of what's going on, but you're hearing the fire embers and other pieces of burning material bouncing off the side of the car. And you're also hearing his breath as he's breathing, and you can feel and sense the stress that he's going through. So when you watch this presentation at another time, you can see this video, and you'll get a better feeling of what it would be like driving through an ember storm like that. All right, so the mission of the Fire Safe Council. We're here to mobilize the people of Santa Clara County to protect their homes and communities and the environment from wildfires. So you'll see the two pictures down below, and this is one of the things that we do, which is our vegetation management, our hazardous fuel reduction program. So the trees that you're looking at is the same tree. It's just different looks at it. So you can see the before picture, and then you can see the after picture. So do this is think about if the fire was on the left picture, for me anyhow, I don't know which one it is you, where it was the tree is not trimmed up, what the fire conditions would be on that environment compared to the other picture after we've come through and do that. And then put yourself in that vehicle's spot, and you would say that the one before the vegetation management would be lots of fire right on top of the road, embers right on top of the road, lots of radiant heat affecting you as you drive through, and then the one on the right, the fire would be lower, less intense, and away from the vehicle. And that's where we come through with that. All right, so today's goals, talk about the Ready, Set, Go program. So we're going to review defensible space and ember awareness. We're going to do the set portion, which is an action plans. Create your family emergency plan, begin to assemble your go bag, emergency and first aid kit checklist. Then there's the go portion. It's time to leave, right? It's no more messing around. It is time to go. And we'll go over what those steps are and then work on your community evacuation maps. And then after we're done, we'll have a question and answer session with the fire department, which I'm playing two roles. So I'm wearing that hat, even though I've been retired for a while. All right. So we'll look at the Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County WUI maps. So Wildland Urban Interface, or WUI is what we call as a short term for that. So you'll see on the Santa Clara side, you've got lots of yellow and red. The community I live in, which is just south of Lexington Reservoir off of 17, we're in extreme hazard zone. I don't know exactly from looking at this map where we are here, but you can look around and realize that the environment we have here is pretty significant for this rapid spread of fire. All right, so now we're going to do the ready portion, the defensible space. All right, so because you've all done that, so I'm going to zip through this pretty quick. So it creates a safe area for firefighters to protect your home. This is the one thing that when I was going out on strike teams that we look for. What homes looked like it was going to be safe for us to park and hold out and defend if there was fire coming up a hill or down or up a canyon or whatever. So you want to entice the firefighters to come to your home. You want to have your vegetation cleaned up. You want to have your home extinction zone, your 0 to 5 feet, your 5 to 30 feet. You want to have those areas dialed in because quite frankly, we're not going to stay if it looks like we're going to risk our lives to protect your house if you haven't done the effort to do that, right? That's just straight up. So what Defensible Space does is it creates an area that reduces the fuel around your property, right? So it's going to keep the fire on the ground. It's not going to put it up into the air or into the ladder fuels into the trees. It's going to keep out that. So it's going to protect your home. And the other thing that it does is it protects your forest. It keeps your trees healthier. If you got a bunch of dead limbs and stuff that are down on the lower portion of the tree, your tree has got to try, the tree is going to try to repair that and make that healthy. If you remove that dead vegetation, now the tree is going to put all its energy into making itself healthier. Okay, so that's a key point. A lot of people think that it's clear cutting and you're not doing that at all. Okay. So we talked about embers and firebrands and we saw that in the video, right? All the vegetation is right on top of the road, so all the fire's right there, all the embers are right there. We had a pretty decent little breeze coming up here a little bit earlier when walking up, and it's usually a north wind that comes right down through the valley and shoots out down that way. So you can carry those embers a mile out. So as the fire starts to build, those embers start the fire gets bigger, creates more embers, push the embers out further out the road, start getting spotting. If it's really dry and really windy, for example, the fires that we've been up in Santa Rosa in that area starting in 2017, and those high sustained winds push those firebrands up to 5 miles out in front of the fire, right? So that's a tough battle to deal with. So when you think about this, what will the firebrands or embers land on, right? What's the target? Where's it going to do? And there's 3 things it's going to do. It's either going to self-extinguish, it's going to smolder, or it's going to ignite. Right, and so unfortunately I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's a rating that we put depending on the weather that goes on, that if one single ember lands in a fuel bed, what's the percentage of that fuel bed catching on fire? Anywhere from 0% to 100%. One little ember lands on a spot, it goes, or it's going to take a lot more. So those are the things you need to look at that way. All right, the home ignition zone, this is where you want to be ember aware. What are the things that you're going to do to your home to reduce the chance of fire ignition on your structure itself, right? So you can see from the picture here that there's all kinds of little burning fire things in there and different numbers on that indicate where you're going to have leaf litter, other flammable debris that are collected. Usually where the wind lands is going to blow that stuff. So if that's where you see a pile of leaves that builds up somewhere, that's where the embers are going to land. That's where you're going to catch your house on fire, all right? So that's where you want to be careful about that. And that's important to keep all that clean. All right, now here's where we're going to get into the meat of the issue here, right? This is the set portion. These are the things that you're going to do to prepare to evacuate. You're going to develop your own emergency evacuation plan. And there's things that go on that. The community that we live in, we were one zone haven community away from being evacuated during the CZU fire, the lightning strike that happened in Big Basin, right? So we were on SCC alert SCC. We were on Twitter for CAL FIRE, CZU, for CAL FIRE, SCU, for Santa Clara County Fire, the county, all these things. So we're trying to collect all this information to figure out when it was time to go. So I'd highly recommend that you start looking at Alert SCC, Code Red for Santa Cruz County. That may or may not be effective for you depending on where you live or whether you've got family out in that area. So here we go to being prepared, right? This is how you create your family evacuation plan. Assemble an emergency kit for each person and keep one in the car. My wife and I have each got a go bag, a smaller go bag in the trunks of both of our cars. We also have one big one for the main house. These things can come in really handy, not only for wildfire evacuation, but in the event of an earthquake or any other emergency where you need to be moving and you need to grab some things and go pretty quickly. You want to have a fire extinguisher at the house if you can do that. And know how to shut off your utilities. Know how to shut off your gas, your water, and your electricity, right? This may or may not be something you're going to do, but you should be able to at least know where those are depending on what's going on. You want to maintain an emergency contact list. So that's all your friends and family that you may need to get in contact with in the event of emergency so they know where you are. Just today with the active shooter thing in San Jose, family emails and phone calls are coming in, how close you were that, and it happened to a bunch of other people as well. So that's the same kind of thing that's going to happen to you in this sort of emergency. You also want to have a battery operated portable radio so you can listen to the news, AM, FM kind of radio, something like that. You have to get away from your Sirius XM or your Pandora or your Apple Play or whatever that is. To be able to find out what's going on around you. All right, so this is a time to fill out your family plan workshop. Okay, so you all see that on the Zoom? There we go. So we'll start out with that a little bit, just so your family disaster plan. So this way what I want to do is try to get you set up. I'm going to block out my address. To get set up to start doing this and start developing your plan. All right, so you'll have your names, your household address. If you have a dog, your pet info, and we'll cover that out a little bit later as well. And then contacts for people outside of the area. So my sister lives up in West Sacramento, so that's who I use for that. Talk about your escape routes from your home, write those out so you know what's going on. Part of what happens is that when you get stressed and you're not used to it as a firefighter or a police officer or something like that, that's how we operate. So we learn how to live in that world. When the world's going to hell in a handbasket around you, we're still able to function, sort of, mostly. And but if this comes up out of the blue, out of the air, and you're not thinking about that and plan about it and train for it, that's where your stress level is going to get to the point where your function may drop quite a bit. And this is a time where you need to be able to laser focus and dial in on everything and get going in. So by having an action plan that you're able to look at and build off of, that will help you out quite a bit. Because all you have to do is, like pilots, they've got a checklist, right? Pilots go through a checklist. It's the same kind of philosophy. You've got a checklist on that, okay? All right, so family communication plan. This is really, really important, and that's kind of what I've already touched on a little bit. Discussions about, I'm going to stick with the plan here before going off target. So designate someone out your state as a contact. I've got a cousin that lives just outside of Orlando, Florida. So Debbie is our contact person for us, that we can get a hold of them, and everybody else in the family will call her and then pass on the information that we're okay, what's going on, what our status is, that sort of thing. If you have young kids or you have young grandkids, you want to make sure, and my wife's a kindergarten teacher, so this is something that we hammer into the kids as well, is you want to make sure that the kids know their full name and know the parents' full name. You want to write down and update any contact names and phone numbers as well. So that's one of the other things that you want to do is make sure the kids know their phone number, know the parents' phone number, the home phone number, things like that. This is something that I just learned, okay? And so I don't have all the details on this, but know how to access your voicemail from an altered phone number. Let's say the battery, because we all rely on our phones, right? They've become our lifeblood. Without them, we don't know what we're going to do, right? So if you lose your phone, your battery goes dead, what you want to be able to is change your greeting. So if anybody calls your cell phone, you can say, I'm fine, we are here, this is where you can be reached, that sort of thing. So people aren't going, there's nobody's answer, nobody answers. Because you hate that when you call 15 times and nobody picks up the phone. And it's one thing when you think that they hate you. It's another thing if they're an emergency, you want to find out how they're doing, right? So here's part of the other thing is write down your meeting locations as part of your plan. you're going to have different locations that you want to meet, depending on which way you leave, right? So I've been looking at the maps trying to figure out which is the best, cleanest way for you guys to get out of here. And it's probably left on Pierce Road to get out to, is it De Anza Boulevard or? That's okay. It changes 6 different times through there. So you want to be able to figure out which way you want to go, depending on where the fire is. If the fire's rolling down here, you may be going right out on Pierce Road and heading the long way to get out. So you need to figure those routes out. So part of that is where your meeting locations are going to be. For us, depending on where the fire is, it's either at Vazona Park in downtown Los Gatos, or we're meeting in Capitola on the beach, depending on where the fire is, right? Because you don't want to drive into the fire, you want to drive away from the fire. So that's where you want to look like that. So you want to figure out those places where you're going to meet, and particularly if everybody's separated, right? We're not all in a little tight unit all the time. My wife's going to work, I'm doing something else, so we need to figure out where that place is going to be. All right, assembling your go bag. All right, so when you get a go bag, we didn't build one ourselves. We went out and bought one. There's all kinds of emergency supply stores or online things you can get that. So that's where we got our go bags, which has a basic structure of water and first aid supplies and things like that. So you can add to that. So you want to make sure you've got a 3-day supply of food and water for you, each of you, everybody in the household, and your pets. Do not forget about Fido and Kitty, right? They're really important. So you want to do that. You want to have an evacuation map and a contact list. So all these things you want to have in different locations, but certainly wherever your go bag is, you want to have those documents that are right there so you don't have to hunt them down. You can have it taped inside one of your kitchen cabinets, but have another one by your go bag so it helps keep a track on that. Prescriptions and eyeglasses, right? So if you have medications that you take, if you leave them behind or lose them, you're going to also want to have the hard copy of those prescriptions in your go bag so that when you go to the pharmacy, you can go, hey, here's my prescription, because they're not going to fill it on your own word. So you want to make sure you have that. Eyeglasses, right? Keeping the old pair in the go bag somewhere too. So if you lose your regular eyeglasses, at least you've got something that will help you see a little bit better than without them. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so extra keys, credit cards, cash, copies of important documents. We've got all our stuff on thumb drives. So all that information we need is in the thumb drive, is in our go bag. We update that every once in a while to make sure everything's all correct. And then that way, that if we have to bolt and we get our go bag, we've got all that information at least on the thumb drive. Cash, all right? If you've got $500 and $20 bills, guess what everything's going to cost? $20, right? So we've got a bunch of ones, a bunch of fives, a bunch of tens, and a couple 20s in there. Just kind of spread that out, because you can burn through $500 of 20 bills really quickly if you're needing to resupply stuff. Because the power is going to be out at the local store as well, so they're not going to have the electric cash registers to do that. The old days of the manual buttons and all that are going to be out the window. So part of your go bag should be some changes of clothes, right? It doesn't have to be your Sunday go to meeting clothes, but something that's going to be comfortable and safe. Generally, particularly if you're going to still be near the fire environment, it's going to be something that's non-flammable. But you're not going to want to wear nylon. You're not going to do that, and that'll come up again later on. Sanitation supplies. We're all into sanitation right now. Hand sanitizers, all those are kind of things, wipes. Those are things you're going to want to do and have that. Pet supplies and vaccine records, right? So again, we're back to 3 days of food for you and whoever else is there, and 3 days of food for each one of your pets, and any of the vaccine records that you have for the pets. If they need to go, if they get separated for you and go to animal control. All right, so part of where that list that I was talking about with the go bag. If time allows, take what else, right? Figure out what you need to do. We lucked out on the CZU fire because we had like 3 different iterations of what we were going to pack. The first time we went through, we grabbed all the most important thing. We used milk crates because that's what we used to use a lot when we were going out camping and fishing all the time. Fits really well for any files that you need to put in there. My wife had our family trust in one of the things, and she also had a bag of Hershey's dark chocolate kisses. So, and we also had a 6-pack of our favorite wines in there too. So she did that. So she has her priorities straight. All right. So this is a list of all the things that you may not think about. Remember, you're under high stress and you're trying to put all this stuff together. So these lists are going to be really, really important. So your easily carried valuables. We filed all our photo albums into these milk crates, loaded them in the car. Grab your PC or your computer, your laptop. Dana has a laptop, I don't, so I'm grabbing my hard drive and taking that. Chargers for your phones, for your watches, for whatever else you've got. We've got millions of them, so let's put those in the go bags too, so you have access to those. All right, first aid kits. Again, you can get those at any of the emergency supply things online or any stores like that. So I have the basic things like that, basic contents for you to get little basic ones like this, or you can get more full-scale ones depending on what's going on. So you got a variety of bandages, ointments, wipes, tweezers, cold pack gloves. For those that are watching, there's a fly buzzing in my ear, so that's what it is. All right, so any other specialty supplies for any medical needs you have. So if you have diabetes or something else that you need to have those sort of things available, you want to have easy access to those. All right, now this is something, we're in a Firewise community as well. And we're kind of a tight, you've got a long road in here. We're a little tight community with about 140 homes in 60 some odd acres, I think what it is. So there's little pockets that naturally develop the way the roads go in. So we call it a pod system. And Aldercroft Heights is another one around that does that as well. So you get anywhere from 8 to 12 homes. Usually 8 to 10 is usually a little bit easier. That you have groups of people that get together and know each other and support each other. So that's a way to do that. So have a block party, share your phone numbers, next door email lists, walking your dog, which we don't have anymore, was a great thing to do. We get to know everybody. I take that back. We get to know everybody's dog, but not them, right? So that's another thing is that, look up and say, hey, hi, my name's Brad, you are, and then introduce yourself that way too. So go for a walk and say hi. And now that we're out and about a little bit more, saying hi is a very happy thing to do. All right. So creating your evacuation plan. We talked about this already. Designate 2 meeting locations, one right outside your home. That's one of the things you want to do as well. So this is a firefighter in me that does the fire prevention programs in October for kids in school. So we have the exit drills in the home. And so that's one of the things is once you get out of the home, where does everybody meet? Right? So you've got an immediate location that everybody's going to meet. And then we're talking back to that place of where you're going to go if it's outside of your home, outside of your neighborhood, somewhere else. So you may be at least 2 places, maybe 3, depending on which way you have to go. Or you're going over to the hill to the beach, or you're coming back into town kind of thing. So when you look at that as well. Know your escape routes. All right, this comes back to you go into a hotel, you take the elevator. What happens if there's fire in the hotel, you can't get over with the elevator? What happens if there's a fire somewhere here and you can't get out your normal route, right? So drive around, get to know the neighborhoods, find out where the dead end streets are so you don't take those to get out. That's a bad thing, right? So you want to look at that as well. From your home, from your neighborhood. And have an evacuation for pets and livestock. I don't know how many of you have large animals up here. Anybody have horses, cows, things like that up here? Okay, so in Santa Clara, in all counties, there's large animal rescue groups that if you get in contact with them, and then you can start developing your plan on how to get them out. My neighbors across the street are the managers of the Bear Creek stables. And when the CZU fire came out, they evacuated some 25 or 30 or more horses in like an hour and a half and got them out. So those systems are in play. So I would highly recommend that you take a look at that. Anybody else that's out there, hi everybody, do that as well. And we're back to the family communication plan. I'm starting to repeat things that I got ahead of myself. So have that family communication plan. Who you're going to contact, who's going to contact you, who you're going to send that information out. Again, I'm back to the earthquake because it works as well. When the phones get tied up and everybody gets busy, calling doesn't necessarily work. Texting may still work. So start texting people that as well. All right, so here we are. So this is a map of a larger scale map of kind of where we are and going down the road down to Pierce Road. All right, so what's going to happen is that the sheriff's office, because that's who covers you up here, and any other support local law enforcement agencies are basically responsible for evacuation. If firefighters are evacuating you and they're not fighting fire, that means you really need to scoot. Okay, and that's kind of one of the things that happened when I was talking to the people when I was still working that were up in the Santa Rosa fire, the Tubbs fire, and that is that they didn't have time to fight fire because that fire was moving so fast that they had to evacuate people versus fighting the fire. So follow the directions of the fire department and law enforcement. They will have already had communications and plans to get out. So we come up to keep up to date and check your county and city websites and for any updates that are going on like that. So those are the things that you need to keep track of, whether it's the Alert SCC, whether it's Twitter for all our local emergency agencies, all that stuff. They're really on top of keeping that up to date and making that all happen. All right. So I've already done this. So cover your roads, know your roads, all different routes, streets, dead ends. And do not, so that, okay, here's another point that was happened, is that frequently when we're dealing with some of the evacuation training, people will go, we've got this really cool trail that it take you somewhere. Do not try to hoof it out, okay? You are not going to outrun the fire. You don't know exactly where the trail is going to be. There's nothing good about that, okay? So if you can drive out, that's your ideal thing to do. And you'll see here in just a second, when we hit the go part, go. All right, wildfire's coming. It's time to get out of Dodge, right? These are the things that you need to start looking at going on for that. All right, pre-evacuation steps. If time allows, what you do indoors. Shut all your windows and doors, locate your animals, move flammable furniture to the center of the room. So what you're gonna have is a lot of radiant heat that's coming in the windows, and that could ignite a fire inside. So you want to remove much of that material as you possibly can into the center room to give you that distance, okay? Kind of like nuclear energy. The further away you are from it, the safer you are. Same with radiant heat. It's the same principle, actually. And shut off gas and HVAC, your air conditioning heater, if advised in the warning, right? The Alert SCC will tell you some sort of thing that's going on. And if you've got propane, which I assume most of you do, I know I do in my neighborhood, that I would probably just go shut off the propane tank before I left.
We have natural gas up here.
Okay, so then, whether you shut off your street valve for that, that'll.
Or where it enters your house.
All right, so that's how we can go for that. All right, now one of the things you want to do is leave the lights on in your house. If you haven't lost power, and strike teams are coming in, the battalion chief and usually the senior captain on the engine is going to be riding with the battalion chief, and they're going to start scoping out the homes and where they might position their rigs. All right, if you're set back from the road and we can't see you I'm still thinking we. After 35 years, I think it's going to take a while to get out of my system. That you want to be able to have them see where your home is, so they're able to locate it, go in, and see what's going on. If you do not clean the brush away from your road and they have to drive through brush, oh, by the way, they're not going to drive through brush, right? So you want to make sure that your roadway is clean enough and safe enough that they're not going to be scraping branches on the side of your vehicle, on the side of their vehicle. They're not going to go in and take a look at that. All right, so leave your lights on and check your neighbors, right? How's everybody doing? Are they okay? Are they aware of what's going on? And that's part of the pod system that you guys can put together. Where there's a handful of you that live close to each other in different sections down the street, and then you can just check up with each other. Some communities use WhatsApp and have set up their pods, or they have a whole community alert network on that, and so you can start utilizing those sort of communication systems so you can have that direct contact with everybody. So take care of your neighbors. Again, walk your dog, learn their name and the dog's name. All right, pre-evacuation steps, if time allows, outdoors, right? So these are all the things that you need to move away from your home to give it a better chance to survive a fire. So move your flammable items, your patio furniture. I told Dave when I did his HIZ assessment to throw the furniture in the pool, right? Things like that. Turn off your propane tanks if you've got your propane tanks there, and move your barbecues away from the structures, because your propane tanks are that source of fuel for that. In the old days, we always taught for people to prop a ladder up on the side of their house, and what we're trying to do there is keep the firefighter's equipment on the engine, right? if we can do that. So propping the ladder up on the house with the high winds and like that, now your ladder falls down, goes boom, hurts somebody. So what we want to do is if you've got a good sturdy ladder that the fire department's probably going to use, have it propped up, leaned up against the house somewhere where they can easily see that, because that gives them the opportunity. It's going to take me a while to get out of that. It's going to give them the opportunity to get up on the roof and do whatever we call it prep and go. They call it prep and go, where they do things that kind of help your house up a little bit, and then they move on because they feel comfortable that they don't have to be there right at that moment. So have that set up. If there's gates on your driveway, make sure that they're unlocked, or even better yet, open. Okay, so they can get their fire engines in and do that. This is really going to be a problem for me. I can see this already. All right. So what two things do we see here in this picture? Can you see the screen at all? Sort of. The garage door opener and a fuel gauge, right? If there was a rip and fire coming through here and you needed to get out of Dodge, is that fuel gauge in a really good position? No. So the firefighter thing is we never or rarely ever let our vehicles get below 3/4 of a tank. What happens if we're fighting a fire for 6 hours and they got to figure out how to get fuel to us to keep pumping water, right? Same thing for us. If we're evacuating our homes, we need to be able to have as much mileage available to us as possible depending on where we are and what's going on. So our thing is we never let our fuel get below half a tank at our household. All right, so I do that. With the garage door opener, chances are the power is going to go out. It is my understanding, can't quote me on this, but several people passed away during the fires up in Santa Rosa because they did not know how to pull that little cord to unlock the garage door. Okay? It's like, think, it's done. It's not much of a latch, and it happens really quickly. That way you can roll up the garage door and drive out your car, which you've packed and backed into your garage or your driveway. Oh, by the way, that'll be a whole other story on that. Okay? So, how to pack your car. We have Fido sitting in the back of the car, right? So if there's two of you that are evacuating the same vehicle, you don't want to leave your spouse or significant other behind because you packed the passenger seat. Okay? Right? So you want to make sure that with what you're taking and how you pack the vehicle, that all the significant living creatures in your home fit into your vehicle. All right? So trying to figure out how that goes. Like for us, like I said, we use milk crates. We pack those things up. They're able to easily move. They're easily stacked. That works for us real well. So you want to think about what you're putting in the car and how you're going to put them in there and leave room for the living, breathing creatures that you care about. All right. When it's time to leave, all right, go review your checklist, right? Take a look at what your plan is and where everything's going to go. Make sure your emergency your emergency kit is in your vehicle. Okay? So you want to make sure all that stuff is in there and cover up to protect yourself with embers. Remember I talked about not wearing nylon clothes, right? Cotton jeans, like right now, everything that I'm wearing, yeah, I know. I've got nylon pants on, rayon shirt, a cotton t-shirt on, which is good. So you want to have long sleeve cotton jeans, hats. If you have long hair bands, Eugenia, who you didn't get to see, but she was here when she did the Defensible Space, I believe. She goes, one of the things that she's got is she's got handsfuls of hair bands to tie her hair back. She's got long hair. That's serious stuff. So that's where places where embers are going to land. So you want to cover yourself up as well. You don't want the fire starting on you. Okay, don't wait for an evacuation order. If you feel threatened, get out of Dodge. There was people in my neighborhood that I didn't see for 3 days. Because as soon as the first threat came about that fire may be coming over the hill and that a second lightning storm was going to come through, they were gone. Now they came back every day or so to get extra stuff to take out, but they were gone. So there's no shame in leaving, right? Because our lives are way more important than our stuff. Is it going to be awful? Okay, the firehouse almost came out of me there. It's going to be awful. I cannot tell you how many strike teams I've been on, and whole neighborhoods are decimated. And the people that have come back in are devastated. So that's something you're going to have to think about. but at least you have the opportunity to rebuild. You have the opportunity to do something different with your life after that sort of disaster. All right. So standing and fighting with your little garden hose with a fire rolling up the hill is really not smart. Okay. So get out early. All right. All right. So until the echo's done, I'm good. All right. So now we're ready for the question and answers section.
You tell the people online, they can enter their questions and we'll read them here.
Okay, so the people that are online, if you want to enter your questions via the Zoom chat function, which I've gotten really good at these last year and a half or so, I'll take care of that. So anybody here have anything off the top?
I want to ask something.
Sure.
What's your experience with households that have safes? Aren't safes supposed to be fireproof? You know, a safe, like not just a little wall safe.
If you get a fire safe, the one is designed for that specifically.
But for how hot, I wonder? I don't know exactly.
Actually, my wife and I looked at a safe company several years ago and then realized we had no place to put it. And they showed us one that had burnt in a structure fire, a house fire, not a wildfire, a structure fire. And it worked. It did what it was supposed to do. And they actually replaced it. That was part of the deal with the company, is if your safe survives a fire and they will give you a new one. So if you have lots of valuables, purchasing a fire safe would be.
More of things like photographs that you might not want to put in your car and take with you. You know, you have
Right, agreed. So if you're getting a certified fire safe, that would be that would be something to think about.
They're all rated for, if you look at the safe that you buy, they're rated for a certain amount of time. So the really small ones that are, like for small documents, they're usually, they say like 30 minutes at X temperature. And then what you'd want to do is put it deep in the house, low in the house, around concrete, not, where.
I'm thinking more of the bigger ones,
Yeah.
you might have.
You can also do a safe in a safe, so you could put, two in there, so you're kind of double protected. That's another way.
Yep.
Just had one question.
Sure.
So is it the swimming pool people were surviving in the swimming pool if the fire?
I don't have an answer that I could give you that would say that would be reliable. I've heard stories, but I don't, I've heard stories, right? So I don't know how reliable that is. Because depending on how intense the fire is and how fast it's moving through the area, if it's really intense and kind of crawling through, that's going to be an issue. And that would be probably a circumstance where the fire was on top of you really quickly and you didn't have the opportunity to evacuate. My guess is that personally that's where I ended up if that was a situation I had and I had a swimming pool. But I would not, under any circumstances, use that as your primary source of safety.
What about emergencies? If something really would happen in an emergency situation, you don't have a time to.
And that's what I said, is that if that's all I had, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, but the trouble is sometimes, depending on the month or the time of the day, swimming pools could be so cold, freezing.
Well, so look at 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit flame temperature or chilly for a little while in a swimming pool. I mean, so these are all the things that you have to weigh out quickly, right? So these are the discussions and the looking at your environment and what your world is, what that's going to play out like. And ideally, leaving first is the best idea. And here's another thing, is that one of the things that the firefighters do too is if they get jammed up and a fire overtakes the position they're in and they're defending a home, they go into the house and utilize that as a protection zone as the fire goes through, right? Because it takes longer for a home to burn outside in than inside out. So that's something, and these are last ditch efforts, right? If you're staying in your house or you're jumping in your swimming pool, these are absolute last ditch survival moments. Okay? These are not your prime choices at all.
How do we know when we're advised to leave?
What's the official notification that says we're advised to leave?
So that's where you sign up for SCC alert SCC.
That's the official, okay.
Yeah, that. And that's,
I talked to the fire department because we were gonna set up a neighborhood alert system, and we still can, but what they told me is that anybody that, if you have a cell phone or a home phone, it's a reverse 911 call that will come in to any of those devices at, whenever that is, and that's how you'll get the alert. So you don't have to sign up, you're already signed up, it's reverse 911. We can set up something through Nextdoor or something for updates, there's an Old Oak Way neighborhood, or we could set up just a very specific, Old Oak Way fire information, and have updates there, but the other one is done, so you'll get those alerts automatically.
The steering committee has talked about this and explored different ways of alerting, and Jim has worked on some of the schemes. There's apps. The problem is some people, like Stacy and Jim, don't have cell coverage where they are on the backside of the hill on Old Oak Way. So the cell phone stuff doesn't work. A lot of people don't have landlines anymore, they just have cell phones. You could have a situation where the cell towers are out, of course, when power overall goes out. That would be a mass fire that was coming through. I've talked with some of the other chairs of the Firewise committees, and one of them says, we just have somebody drive down the street honking their horn SOS. And we talked to the city about putting up some kind of a siren that we could hear, and they said, no, they don't want that. So we met with the fire department, and they said, we've got this reverse 911, and we will alert you because we know where the fire is.
so I'm going to push back on that just a touch.
Okay.
Okay? That when you sign up for Alert SCC, that's another layer of information, right? So we've got it on both our cell phones, our house phone. So we get voicemails, texts, emails, a million different things. And when the sheriff's helicopter is flying around a neighborhood for whatever reason at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's like we're chasing the house to do all this stuff to get this done. So I would highly recommend and suggest that you still do the Alert SCC as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
these are
signed up
just-
for that, and
Yeah,
it's really
it's just,
helpful. It gives you a lot.
there's too many
a lot of
opportunities
information.
where things may go wrong, and you want to make sure that you get that notification, even to the point of being irritating on some lesser issues.
There was a lot of information that came across that one. We had the lightning last August, this SCU fire.
The last thing we'd probably do, we'll still probably set up some sort of alerts on, Nextdoor seems to kind of be a good platform, but then what we've also talked about is literally having kind of neighbor pods that say, as you go out of the neighborhood, you have a house across the street and a house next door or something, you're at least knocking on those doors and saying, are you on the way out? Do you know, and are you on the way out? Do you need help? Something may have happened, maybe the car doesn't start or whatever, but, that's kind of a last ditch human effort that, goes above all the technology that, can happen, so.
So the pod concept that Lucas is talking about is really, really important, right? And that comes back to walking your dog, knowing everybody's name, knowing who you are, so you're comfortable with knocking on somebody's door or checking on them. So when they see your face, right, they're going, who is this? It's like, oh, I know this person. They're part of my pod. They're here to help. Okay? Not like the federal government says I'm here to help, but that's kind of the thing. All right, so that's how we do that.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I may have missed it, but I didn't hear anything about masks for the smoke. So my son gave us some N95, the full face mask that, so that if you have to go through a smoky area, you're not breathing as much smoke. Is that helpful or not? Should that be part of your kit?
If you choose to do so, sure, why not? It's not going to hurt you. Okay, because the smoke burns. There's no doubt about that, and smoke is very uncomfortable. Is it going to be the same protection as a self-contained breathing apparatus that the firefighters wear? Absolutely not. But it may give you some sort of respite from the smoke that's coming in. So if that's something you want to put into your kit, certainly. Yes, ma'am.
I noticed on your slide that you said to leave the sprinklers off,
Correct.
because we've been investigating maybe having a big sprinkler system and leave it on the house as we evacuate. What's your opinion
Well,
on that?
and so the general consensus is that you don't do that. Okay. In the community I live in now, I was sitting on a crash truck at NAS Moffett Field during the air show when the 85 or 86 Lexington Hills fire started. So I'm sitting in the crash truck watching the Blue Angels fly around, saw a big column of smoke coming out, and members of my community turned all their sprinklers and left. Well, they completely depleted the water supply in the community, so when the fire department rolled in, they had no water left. So I don't know what your water supply is up here, but you affect the firefighters' ability to obtain water, which is our lifeblood, and that's their lifeblood in that sort of environment. So I don't recommend it. Now I know that there is Paul that did the water can Hanson, did the hand, so that kind of a thing. So so that was a thing that they set up with the water cannons for the community to protect that.
It's along the Woolley, right along the interface, they set up a bunch of water cannons, and that was an Arrowhead, which is just on the other side of the project.
Right. And so that wasn't done. Those would not be turned on until there's fire, okay? Particularly in the steeper hills, if the flames are rolling up the side of a hill and you watered it down and then you turn the water off, you're going to delay the fire a little bit, but the heat, as the convected heat as it runs up the hill and the radiant heat as it runs up the hill is going to dry out all that work that you've done, and it's still going to burn. You may slow it up for a little bit, but it's still going to burn. So again, the best thing is your home ignition zone assessment to manage that, your defensible space work from 5 to 30 feet, 30 to 100 foot, if you've got 100 to 200 feet out, and doing that. You reduce the fuel load, keeps the fire on the ground, gives the firefighters an opportunity to attack the fire. Prime example was part of the State Route 17 shaded fuel break project from Summit Road to downtown Los Gatos. We've had probably a half a dozen roadside edge ignitions due to vehicle fires, right? And actually early on, we had somebody that actually did some sets on the side of the road, right? Phone calls were made to the governor and the director of CAL FIRE as these fires, small fires, were being fought because the work that we did for the evacuation route held. We recently had one near Summit Road where the fire department, we just finished an evacuation exercise for Aldercroft Heights. So all the fire guys were right here at the parking lot. We were all talking about this went off, and they were on it, nothing flat, and the fire was small, and it didn't transfer up into the hills, okay? So those are the things those are the steps that are gonna really protect you and your community and your homes. Sir?
You probably have more experience than my question is, what is the speed of, how fast is those spread of fire, say from the first house, from the Pierce and Old Oakway, and advance to here? 5 minutes, 1 hour?
So the question is, what is the rate of spread of fire in any conditions, any area, right? And that all depends on temperature, fuel moisture content, the terrain, the wind. Did I say wind already? And then your fuel load, right? So if you've got heavy winds blowing through here, 40, 50 mile an hour sustained winds, it's 115 degrees. We haven't had water in 5 years, like we just got out of, and what looks like we're heading back into. Your rate of spread is going to be phenomenal, okay? If it's a cool morning, the wind is down, the fuel load is light, the fuel moisture content is relatively high, your rate of spread is going to be slower.
How about this neighborhood? What do you think?
All of those factors I just pointed out to you will play into that. So depending on the time of day, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 100 degrees outside, the sun's been baking on the hillside all day long, a spot fire starts somewhere for whatever, a vehicle fire, whatever happens, and the winds are going, things are going to move quick. You may not have an hour to get out of here. You may have an hour to get out of here. So those are the things that all the information that we covered today, and you take these steps to prepare to evacuate, right? From your defensible space, the ready part, the go part, or the set part, right? Is that you do all your preparation, all your training, all your planning for that, so that when it's go time, literally go time, you're able to maintain your composure and do your thoughts and get out quickly. So I don't have a definitive answer to that because there's so many variables that play into that. Okay.
At a certain time of the year, like during the fire season, during the summer when it's hot, a lot of these trees are dry, and you just pointed out something. We gotta have a fire start with a car fire down on Pierce Road. So they could run off the road and pow. And it could, because it's so steep here and we've got so many trees, it's a big risk.
And in my community, we're less worried about, in our community, the fire coming into it, but the one that starts in it, because our houses are on top of each other, right? It was a community that was built in the early 20s for the people in San Francisco to get out of the fog and come down into the mountains, like Redwood Estates and, and heading over the hill to Santa Cruz and that. So those are the, so my neighborhood is tight and compact. So that's how that goes. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So, this is sort of morbid, but I remember those horrible images of people in their cars incinerated from the last batch of fires. And I wondered, how do you make that decision if you are in a line of cars and it's stopped and you're in fire? I mean, do you have a choice? Do you just sit in your car and hope? Do you whip it? How do you make a decision to whether you do whip it at some point? Berkeley fire, people couldn't get out?
I get that, okay? And part of that was the rapid spread of the fire, right? They didn't have a lot of opportunity to do that, which has now generated these sort of training sessions to get people to prepare for that sort of stuff so that they're not panicking in that environment, right? So again, it's back to your composure. If you're in your car and you're surrounded by fire, right, what are your options? Frying pan into the fire into the frying pan. How do you want to play that, right? So that's where part of your goes into. So this is where these sort of things come into play, and this training that gives you the opportunity to maintain your composure as you're driving out, because you know where you are. You've already thought about this a few times. You've gone through your drills and that, so that you're not jamming up traffic. You're not driving off the side of the road. You're putting all those things together. Those are horrible situations. I can't even imagine what I would think about in that kind of environment. I mean, that's, and if you can, that's the goal, right? And that's ultimately the goal, is have your stuff ready to go and go. Okay. Anything else? Yes, sir.
So your defensible space talks about trees around the house.
Uh-huh.
But for the evacuation, there's a lot of places where there's trees that are going over the road, and if the fire catches on there, it's going to block the road. Who's in charge of clearing up and making sure that the trees are not going over the road and causing a problem with evacuation?
If it's private property, that's going to be on the property owners, right? And how to do that and create your shaded fuel break or whatever.
I actually talked with one of the inspectors, fire inspector from the council came today. He said that
from the council or the county fire department?
The fire safety council. He was doing an inspection.
Oh, HIZ assessment?
I should actually go to city of Saratoga, say that any of the tree space that goes over the road is actually owned and should be cleaned up by them.
And there.
Is that
I met with the
true?
city. Jim and I met with the city of Saratoga, with John Chabot, the head of public works, and Nini Kupola, was the traffic person. And the first 10 feet from our curbs on Old Oak Way is an easement that belongs to the city. And that should be clean of fire, but it's the responsibility of the neighborhood to clean. And so you'll notice on Old Oak Way, there's a number of places, like when you go by Goodfellow's house and a few other places where we've working with the Firewise group, we've cleaned out flammable material. There's also branches that were going over the street.
Those are the things that I'm worried about.
They
The
cut-
branches that go way over the
Well, the city
thing.
said if they're
Do we have
more
to get
than, if
permits
they're
to
more
be
than
able to
10,
do that? Can we
they
just
say if
clear
they're
it
more than
ourselves?
10 feet high, that they're okay because it's not a fire.
But it could fall down. I mean, that's where I think it's actually even worse. The higher it is, the bigger chances you catch an ember and block the road.
So Brad, how often did you see that happen when you were?
It's not an unusual occurrence to have trees, particularly unhealthy trees, to fall across the road.
Okay.
So I don't have a definitive answer for you on this, just because I don't want to put something out there that would be incorrect. It is my understanding that the city of Saratoga does have a hazardous tree removal program in place, or has had one in the past. I can get back to you once I figure out what that information is, and I get a hold of Dave and can put that out. But part of that's going to be that people taking responsibility for their own property, or developing a plan where you guys can start developing your own shaded fuel break or that sort of thing to limit up the trees over the road. Our usual standard is when we do shaded fuel breaks or roadside edge clearing, is any trees that are over the road, we limit up 14 feet from the road surface. And we do that for ease of fire apparatus passing through the area, so we're not knocking branches and things like that. They're not knocking. We'll get over that eventually. My apologies, that wasn't a straightforward answer, but I don't have one for you.
Maybe if we push the city.
What's that?
I said maybe if we push the city, they'll.
That's what he told me to actually go do. So.
Yeah. So you had an HIZ inspection just recently.
Well, we signed up for it, but he was doing the house across the street. I thought he was coming to our house, so I just grabbed it.
Well, so that's the hazard of the decal on the side of the car.
Yeah.
So we have literally just restarted the HIZ. They're not inspections; they're assessments, right?
Yeah.
We're not, because we have no authority to make you do anything. So we come out and we recommend, according to the standards that we've got set up by the National Fire Protection Association, is built off of, and then we look at your home and we talk about your vegetation, the issues that you may have on your home, and that kind of thing. So we're literally just starting up this past week.
So Brad,
we're like 90 homes in the hole right now, with more people signing up.
Brad did my home. You said the last one before the COVID shutdown.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very, very educational. I thought I was a.
We had a number of things come up that we had absolutely no idea were issues.
I thought I was a role model for fire safety until Brad came over and showed me that I wasn't.
So, all right. Are there any Zoom questions or nothing?
Does everybody understand about the HIZ? Just how you would? I know you're backed up right now, but how do you sign up for it, Brad? Could you just tell me?
You go. If we can go back up again, I will do the resources part of this.
What is the HIC? What is the HIC?
It's Hazardous Inspection Zone.
I'll get you in just a second.
Oh, HIZ.
HIZ, Home Ignition Zone.
Home ignition zone.
Home Ignition Zone Assessment. So we come out and we look at 0 to 5 feet, 5 to 30 feet, 30 feet to 100 foot, 100 foot to 200 foot outside your home, if you have that distance. If your neighbor is 20 feet away from you, that's as far as we go, right? That's because that's as far as you're actually required to do anything. So it takes about an hour, hour and a half. We take some pictures, we do a report, and then we send that report back to you with our recommendations. And so what you would do is go to sccfiresafe.org and go through our website. There is tons of information there on all of these things. And then you can sign up for newsletters. You can donate. We're a nonprofit living off grant money, so donations are always appreciated. And start doing that. So we've got Alert SCC, Santa Cruz Code Red, sccfd.org, which is the Santa Clara County Fire Department. They're actually one of the best around. sccfiresafe.org, which is our website. You go to fire.ca.gov, which is a CAL FIRE website. They've got a lot of the same similar information. And then if you go Google Firewise USA, which is the NFPA National Fire Protection Association website, you'll see the Firewise community information in there, which you guys are already recognized or not?
We're in that process.
You're in the process?
We're
So
close.
this
Yeah,
class checks one of those boxes.
So,
Okay.
by the way, you don't have to write this down because if you go to the website, we have, the Firewise website is called oldoakway.info. Not .com because that wasn't available, oldoakway.info. And on there, you'll see this, tomorrow this presentation will be posted. You can see the presentation from our last training last October on Defensible Space. There's all the slides will be there, the video is there. You have all that information, and we have a lot of references to a lot of different things. So all the information you need, oldoakway.info.
You know, by the way, that my Firewise group is going to be used that as a model what we're going to do next. But I took a look at that last night. I'm like, that's nice. It's well done. It's well done.
We can thank Tina for that. She's done all
You do
that.
that? How much do you charge? All right. Yes, sir.
So I think the closest thing that's going to happen to burning your house down is your neighbor's house, right? So
In
as
my
you
community.
take care of your house, if there's an older person next to you, we have a 87-year-old woman who are adjacent to our house. We can help them out too, because their house catches on fire, your house probably gonna catch on fire.
Right. So here's the thing. We, the Fire Safe Council has a SNAP program, a SNAP, Special Needs Assistant Program. So people that are physically and financially unable to do work, there's $3,500 available to have contractors come out and do some of the vegetation management around their homes.
We have one on either side now.
So, yeah, but you know, if they're not capable, but they're physically capable, but financially capable, this isn't going to work.
Okay.
And so that's for people that fit both those categories.
But yeah, I can just see that happening. You do all this work at your house, and then your neighbor, because they're older, just never got around to it.
Well, that's why it's a neighborhood issue.
It is
That's why we have. the
Well, it is, and then
neighborhood.
so part of what my Firewise group does is that we have green bin days, and we get upwards of 20 to 24 people that will go out in different parts of the community and do work. Our next big thing is roadside edge clearing, right? We're going to try to cut the trees back off the edge of the road, get the ivy off the road, and get 10, 15 feet out that we can drive out, not in the middle of all those embers that we saw in the video in the very beginning, right? So as your group, if you can get people together to do that, to help these people out, that's huge. And things like that actually count towards your Firewise recognition too, these sort of events. So our group is out doing all kinds of green bin days, running the chipping program, you know, just doing all kinds of other things. We do our own chipping. We have a couple people that rent chippers and they go out and clean vegetation and chip it themselves that are outside of the scheduled chipping program.
I have a quick question, and I'm hoping the answer is a lot. How is Firewise catching on in California? Are more and more
It's catching on quite well, yes. Yeah, so there's at least 4 right around where I live. And I know that you guys and a couple others are coming around here. So Firewise is making a difference. If you're military, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for doing an advertisement on this thing, but USAA gives you a 10% discount on your homeowner's insurance if you're in a Firewise community. So I don't know if other insurance companies do that. So I don't know. Most everybody's like AAA is shutting everybody down. And I think there's a state program coming up that's kind of like the earthquake insurance thing that may be coming up soon. I don't think we're going to get any deals out of that either.
It's very, very expensive.
Yeah. So all of the work that you do, my neighbor just got lit up last year by their insurance agent doing a drive-by. And he spent over $70,000 trying to get his house. It was a wood shake sided house, and now he's got cement shiplap on the side of it. And so he's put a lot of money, he took a lot of trees out. We can see each other very easily now when we're on our back porches. So a lot of that was lost too. But those sort of things may be beneficial that I'm part of a Firewise recognized community. I've done all this other kind of work. Now what do you want me to do? That's coming from a homeowner that lives in actually a worse area than you guys do.
Looks like we're getting into another season.
Yeah. Oh, that was always the big joke, was that it's going to be the worst fire season ever, and each year it actually has been since like 2016. So, all right, if that's it, I appreciate everybody's time and effort, including these people on Zoom, and we're going to call it a wrap. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.